Well, as we discussed last week, the rain might not have helped the wheat crop so much, but Josh, when it comes to summer crops, did that help at all?
Rain this time of year is always a good thing, especially in some areas where it was so dry, it just allowed folks to actually plant. And in fact, this cornfield actually was planted into some moisture, dried up on it a little bit, so it was able to kind of, the corn, especially the bulk majority of the field that was not up, it allowed it to kind of come up. So it does help. It was a little later than what we would like. We would have liked it a couple weeks ago because our typical planting time frame is, that later part of March into April and then the first part of May. And so it would have been nice to have it maybe end of March, 1st of April, but at this time of year, we're never going to complain about rain.
Yeah, and in some areas, the rain might have come down a little too much too fast.
Yeah. The good thing is the bulk majority of the state had a nice rain over a couple of days, even though it was a lot. We can get some ground sealing to where we get moisture on the surface and it just does not accept anymore for a period of time. Don't have that period for it to percolate down, but hopefully, especially some of our growers that are no-till, some of them that have something on the surface, we're able to capture a bit more, and hopefully that helps out a little bit. And I do want to go back to the timetable. Just because I said that it's late, and that kind of is, we're at the back end of that typical planting window, does not mean that you can't plant past it. We've had growers for many years plant beyond what OSU currently recommends as our planting window, and do it with success. The issue comes is there's a risk factor associated with it. It's that second week in July through the first part of August is typically hot, is typically very dry, and what we don't want is critical growth stages of those crops, such as our soybean, our corn, our grain sorghum, and our cotton, to be going through those really hot and dry conditions whenever it doesn't need to be, or it needs a lot of moisture.
So for those producers who are going to be planting soon or have already planted, with the heat, the climate prediction centers for May they're already predicting like more, hopefully get moisture, but they're predicting warmer temperatures than usual. How does that affect things?
Well, it just depends, so something like a corn crop that usually gets planted in March or April and is typically very cool, we have this very prolonged vegetative period, which is very positive for corn and milo for that matter, because we always talk when we're farming those two crops, what we're doing is we're farming sunlight, not really farming the crop. The crop is capturing that sunlight. So we want a large amount of sunlight early when we have good conditions, great conditions, we're able to kind of go through and do that. When we shorten that vegetative period, very similar to what we do when we plant double crop, when we plant in June and it's already very hot, and we're accumulating a lot of heat units is what we're concerned with, and that's a measure of how fast that crop develops. We're already capturing a lot of heat units. It potentially progresses a lot faster, and that shortened vegetative period can be detrimental, but that's not saying that we aren't going to see these cool spells like we might experience this week, to where we'll go back into the 70s, allow that crop to kind of slow down, produce a lot of biomass. That's what we really want, is some decent amount of biomass that the moisture in the soil can sustain, and then it to progress to reproductive growth when we're actually using that biomass to fill the grain.
You mentioned double crop, so what's the situation there?
Yeah, and a lot of that's gonna hinge on that wheat crop. I don't know how early or late the wheat crop might be harvested, but that double crop is that summer crop system to where we harvest the wheat and then we plant summer crop immediately thereafter, or sometime very, very soon thereafter. And that's a key for us, especially the areas that it was drier, that the drought has kind of hit a little bit harder. So that I-35 corridor and west, double crop is a big system for a lot of those folks, because it is inherently a system that offsets that typically hot and dry period and moves those critical growth stages into late August and into September. So there is some benefit to that. It's how much rain we're still going to get, and that's a thing. There's a lot of growers right now struggling with do I go ahead and plant into this knowing I'm at the back end of that window, or do I just hold off for my later window, which is either a double crop or a full season just planted in mid-June. And there's risks in both of them, and probably there's about equal risks in both of them this year. Typically that double crop's a little riskier because we never know if it's going to rain in June. we never know how much more rain we're going to get, and we're working on very, very, very shallow moisture right now. If we get a good amount of rain next couple weeks, doesn't mean you can't pull the trigger, but you can also wait and see what that mid-June kind of brings us.
All right, thanks, Josh. Josh Lofton, Cropping System Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.